Okay, so there's a friend group consisting of 3 people: Carmine, Ceramic, and Hobo Joe. All you really need to know about these people is that Hobo Joe is stupid and that Carmine and Ceramic are just normal old guys. So basically, they decide to have an outing over to the city that's very close to them, and they're just there to have a fun time. While trying to go to the city, they stumble upon another city called Grutown. Grutown is a very poor city. Its mayor is Gru, and he really has a tough time trying to run Grutown, but he loves his job and just embraces the poorness. So they look for a hotel to stay at the night, but their hotel kind of blows up, so they have to stay in some tents. Okay, so Hobo Joe, you have to know that he plays a very important part in this whole series. He is part of a mafia. The mafia also consists of 3 members: Hobo Joe, Clucky, and Mr. Monkey. Their story is that they both met in preschool, and they were one of those kids who just caused trouble, and they did that all throughout elementary and middle school. Clucky and Mr. Monkey end up dropping out of high school and want to become gang members, but nobody lets them in their gang, so they decide to become their own mafia instead. They end up being the main mafia of Cube City and decide that they need some new recruits. They look for recruits and eventually finding a homeless man named Hobo Joe, which you guys obviously know. They start with their first crime being carjacking, and they decide that Clucky is the leader of the mafia. Hobo Joe then suggests that they recruit his friends Ceramic and Carmine. Clucky and Mr. Monkey agree, but only on one condition. If they survive all the explosions that they're going to explode behind them tomorrow, then they will be recruited as new members for the mafia. So the next day, Ceramic and Carmine wake up and see that Hobo Joe's in here. They also see that in a chest, there is 27 emeralds, which is Cube City's currency. They then go outside to see a sign planted by the mafia that says, "Hey, start your training, P.S. Hobo Joe got sick." The mafia said that Hobo Joe got sick even though he didn't, and they just needed an excuse for Hobo Joe not being here. Ceramic and Carmine see that the note was planted by the mafia and don't believe it and think that Hobo Joe is just pulling a prank. So Ceramic starts going back into his car until Carmine stops him because Ceramic wants to go back home. Carmine doesn't want to go back home because after all that craziness that happened yesterday, they're not just going to just leave and just not explore anything of the city. Ceramic doesn't want to explore because he thinks more craziness things are gonna happen, so he just wants to go back home. They end up staying at the city and going to get a tour guide to get a tour and explore the city. So they get the tour guide, and the first destination they're going to is the Cube City Mall. While going to the mall, we learn that Clucky is actually the owner of the mall. Clucky has always been on the verge of losing his mall job because every worker he hires is either bad or a criminal. Police have also suspected of him being in a mafia multiple times, which is also giving him lots of legal trouble. Ceramic and Carmine end up exploring into a coffee shop where they find this witch. This witch has a very bad criminal record of poisoning people and killing people. So she ends up poisoning Carmine, but Carmine doesn't end up dying. It's just a little sting. So then they try going to a new store, and we see Mr. Monkey inside of that store. Mr. Monkey then explodes all of the TNT, and that is the first step of their training. Since they survived this explosion, that means that they passed the first step in their training. In this scene right here, we can see that a villager got killed by another villager. Keep this scene in mind for later. So they go to a museum for the next tour. So this museum basically just shows all the generations of Cube City. After exploring all the generations of Cube City, they go back down and see that the entire skyscraper is blown up. This was step 2 of their training, which they survived, meaning they passed step 2. We also learned that Mr. Monkey and Clucky have been on the news a lot, probably because they've been suspected of being a mafia, or it's about Clucky's legal trouble in the mall. So then they go to explore to the music store, but then that burns down, which is step 3 in their training, and they survived, meaning they passed step 3. For their last destination, they go down to Food and Stuff. While ordering their food, the mafia comes down, explodes the ceiling, and threatens to kill them. This all eventually leads to a car chase, and they pull over on the side of the road. This was their last step in training, which they survived, meaning there are now new recruits to the mafia. Clucky then takes Ceramic and Carmine back to the mafia hideout, but police pull up and Clucky goes into hiding. So Ceramic and Carmine then get accused of wreaking havoc all around the city, even though it wasn't them, it was the mafia, and they get sent to their cells. While Ceramic was getting sent to his cell, we meet a guy named Chad. Chad is a mafia member. We don't really know much about him yet, but he does come in later episodes. We also see that the villager that killed the other villager is in jail. So, yeah, that's why I told you guys to remember him. So they head down to get their food, but a fight kind of breaks out, and they get sent back to their cells and don't end up eating breakfast. So now it's yard time, and the group decides to huddle up and try to figure out a plan on how to escape. While trying to think of a plan, this old man comes over here and gives them some tips on how to escape. This old man is a very wise old man that has been in the prison for a very long time and knows a lot of things about the prison, so they take his advice. So during lunch, they get their bowls, their spoons, their forks, and everything, and make a run for it and escape the prison. They do this by pouring the soup, that's basically acid, digging with their spoons and their bowls. They all eventually escape, except for the villager, who sacrificed his life to shut the door. Just so you know, he didn't even sacrifice his life, he's still alive. So anyways, Ceramic and Carmine meet up once again with the mafia. When they meet up, they learn Hobo Joe's story on why he's part of this mafia. Apparently, Hobo Joe was dead broke and just needed some way to get money. Anyways, they get new clothes and get taken to the real mafia hideout. There, Ceramic and Carmine spend the night, and they're still a little unsure if they should stay in this mafia because it's a mafia. Anyways, while they sleep, the mafia does some stuff outside. While Ceramic and Carmine are asleep, the mafia decides to go rob the bank. To escape the police, the mafia end up going inside this abandoned house to hide. This house is actually Steve's old house, which he abandoned in order to go to Monkey Republic. At this point of the series, no one knows who Steve is or what a Monkey Republic is, but those two things play a big role in season 2. So, the house burns down. The group then goes back to the house to count up their money. The reason the mafia robbed the bank is because they're trying to save up money to buy a house at the suburbs. The reason they want a house in the suburbs is because they're trying to spy on the mafia that's in the suburbs. The mafia in the suburbs is the Buzz Lightyear Mafia. The Buzz Lightyear Mafia is one of the wealthiest and richest mafias in the Cube City area. Both of the mafias hate the other mafia and are trying to get rid of it or become more powerful. This mafia wants to be one step ahead of the Buzz Lightyear Mafia, so they want to buy a house in the suburbs. The mafia still doesn't have enough money to buy a house, so they go rob the gas station. The mafia then goes back to their house and discuss ways on how to recruit new members. They then come up with a plan to make a robot for some reason. But they put the idea to the side for now and go look for a real estate agent. So they hire a real estate agent and go look for houses. While they're looking for the houses, they see the Buzz Lightyear Mafia hideout, which is that big mansion. They end up buying this house right here and then leaving. When they come back to the Mafia hideout, they get Ceramic and Carmine to help them build their robot. After building the robot kind of runs away. They don't really worry about it because Clucky has a tracker on him. Anyways, they come back inside, and Ceramic and Carmine become official members of the Mafia. Clucky then tells them that it might be a good idea to go look for a job, so they agree, and they look around. In Cube City, there's actually another side story. This is Chris and Angel. Chris and Angel are both brothers who went to Cube City in order to be safe. Their hometown kind of got attacked by a mafia and they had to just go somewhere to be safe. So they get a hotel room and look around for a job. Chris and Angel do eventually find a job in this office building, but they do end up getting fired for being accused of breaking a computer. Meanwhile, Ceramic and Carmine go to the wood shop to find the job. So Carmine ends up getting the job, but Ceramic has to look elsewhere for a job because he didn't get the job. Ultimately, Ceramic does end up finding a job at the stone shop. Also, a piece of lore about this guy who hired Carmine. This guy is Crocodile Caesar. Crocodile Caesar is the CEO of Croc Incorporated. The shoes they make are very popular in Cube City, and he's doing really well for himself. Since Chris and Angel got fired, they look somewhere else for a job. They both end up getting a job at the clothes store. Chris gets the night shift, and Angel gets the day shift. At the end of the episode, Ceramic and Carmine do end up meeting Chris and Angel. They don't really become friends yet, but they do have some small talk. Hobo Joe then shows up at the mall and asks Ceramic and Carmine to go to Clucky's house because he needs them. Meanwhile, Chris and Angel actually do suspect Ceramic and Carmine of being part of a mafia.